I'm of course a fan of digital humanities. I really think that digital humanities has this wonderful ability to combine traditional exploration of content in the humanities with new modes of understanding the world that we live in, particularly the use of digital technology.
Is really just kind of radically enhancing the different lenses that we use to explore texts in different ways. And then I think the digital tools that we have that allow for gauging the frequency of words that they're used over time, that's a really kind of unique thing that was done in the past in this very laborious way, but we can do it now very quickly and can then use it to ask more potentially generative questions.
So it can really deepen the learning experience. Like even if you did have access to the original text, let's say, I think what this offers is it's going to be a richer kind of experience, because it's going to allow you to interact with the text in a way that you can't in a conventional method.
And the digital humanities really emphasizes collaboration, and it tends to break down the sorts of hierarchies that you typically get in the humanities, where you have your professor up in front of a classroom, maybe designing an assignment which the students are supposed to finish for a grade. This is not like that.
We're hoping, and this is what we're still working out, this gets to the kind of collaborative nature of this sort of work, but as a group we're deciding what is the sort of information that we want to make sure gets carried over. Is it just really kind of questions about names and maybe geographic locations, and perhaps literary references and allusions that the Countess of Dulwyn makes? It happens to be a highly elusive novel that's really invested in thinking about the status of kind of 18th century literary celebrity, so Shakespeare is referred to very frequently.
And I really enjoyed that experience. It's very different from the classical read a book and come to class and let's talk about the book, and then read another book and come to class and we'll talk about the book. It was not like any other class I've ever taken.
What I really want to do is engage students with the critical questions that are raised when you actually try to remediate the manuscript into digital form. And that involves acquiring a host of skills alongside those traditionally used for the critical analysis of the humanities. So in the case of medieval literature, yes, you're learning to read Middle English, but you're also learning the text encoding initiative, which is a schema for marking up text in XML, one of the major internet technologies.
My initial thought was that it was like translating one language I didn't speak into another language I didn't speak, and
Hoping you did it right.
just wondering,
Yeah.
like I wish I don't know, Google Translate, can you help me? No? Okay, that's fine.
It gave us a really good kind of groundwork to start to think about how we were going to code sort of images that we would randomly see in these manuscripts, and we still haven't gotten to an answer yet, but we're starting to think about it. But I think it's those little quirks that really made the experience feel like just so exciting all the time, right?
In our actual text in St. Mary of Egypt, we had a few pages where there weren't cat-related defects, but there were all kinds of shrapnel in the text. There were stains and smudges, and there was one page where like every line had something crossed out and rewritten and edited because the scribe was just really drunk that day and couldn't control his quill.
One in a scriptorium.
Do as the monks do.
Do as the monks do.
And so students are really coming away with a variety of skills and knowledge that is directly transferable to a wide variety of professional and interdisciplinary applications.
And one of the interdisciplinary aspects of it is the geocoding that we got to, which was where we would tag all of the locations within the text that they discussed. It's like, and then she went to Alexandria, and we're like, okay. And then she went to the River Jordan. Okay, and we were able to track where the people in the text went and map it out. And unfortunately, the text we worked on only actually had 4 locations, so it was less exciting than maybe it could have been.
Another group of students worked with Professor Kleinman on the Hannah More project. That grew out of a kind of conversation that happened in one of my classes about questions of authorship in Hannah More's cheap repository tracks. And through using some DH tools, they were able to think about stylistic choices and make some really informed inferences as to the kind of questionable authorship of a couple of different tracts within this big volume of cheap repository tracts.
One of the ways that plays out is actually the digital humanities perspective, where you can actually data mine the text and treat it as a bag of words approach and sort of topic model, which you obviously couldn't when you were working with an image of a manuscript. But when you have it as an actual text form, you can look and see what the word frequencies are, how spelling changes, and maybe find correlations between spellings of different scribes.
And I think what projects like the AEME and things like 18th Connect as well kind of offers both the transcribers that are transcribing the text and scholars around the world that now have access to these texts in a variety of different formats. It just makes everything so much more global and accessible. And I think coming from someone who, you know, hopefully is going to be a high school teacher, I think having access to these texts that are, you know, you usually associate them being in a, like, you know, stuffy kind of branch of a library, which is super cool in my opinion, but you know, trying to get younger students to have that passion, I think is going to be a lot easier because of the work that we're doing in these kind of different projects.
So I see it as kind of really nicely balancing these new innovative techniques of literary analysis that we use through digital humanities, while also really complementing the kind of core skills that we have always sought to teach our students in terms of close reading and analysis.
It really changes the classroom dynamic, and it allows students to really engage in scholarly practices in a way that the traditional classroom has failed to do. And I think that's inspiring, it's empowering, it allows students to really make a contribution to scholarly practice and to the resources for scholarly work that frequently they have not been able to do in the past. And then finally, that contribution itself will have a lasting influence. And this is something that they can return to because it will be available online. It's a permanent archive that is really a gift to the world.
Lily, you found like some cat pee.
Yeah, it wasn't actually in a text that we were encoding, but there is a existing problem with medieval scriptoriums where cats were kept in, you know, present to eat the mice and to protect the books, but sometimes they would walk across the pages on account of them being cats, and sometimes I guess they would also pee on the pages on account of them being cats. So there was this amazing passage in some medieval book that someone transcribed, and it was a drawing of a cat peeing on the page where the cat peed, with text that said, like, beware, do not leave your book open where a cat can reach it because cats are jerks. More or less, paraphrasing. So that's an important lesson learned.